Num Number one, I'd like to compliment myself for arranging this because this was hard. Number two, I'd like to compliment Dasha because Dasha's actually been at Kweller for over 10 years. I cannot believe you agreed to do this year after year after year, and you're not sick of me. So I really just want to take a moment and give Dasha a huge thank you. Number one, thank you for being a Hunter College High School graduate. Number two, thank you for making time. You are an adult, you have a real full time job. So I really just want to say thank you for making very special time to do these extra help webinars from the kindness of your heart because you don't have to do this. I want to remind everyone Dasha is a working woman. She has a real full time job. She's not juggling a college class and Kweller. She's an adult. So I really want to take a moment before we start the webinar. And I would love for everyone just to say thank you before she even starts this because Dasha is a busy person. And I just want to say thank you because it's a big deal that you're doing this for over 10 years and you're in the real workforce. So I just want to say that is huge. With that being said, I also want to share a moment and to let everyone know that Dasha was one of the exam developers at Kweller Prep. Dasha was a curriculum developer at Kweller Prep. Dasha was emotional support. Dasha was chaos control. Dasha was turmoil control. Dasha was Kweller Prep Queens, Kweller Prep Manhattan, Kweller Prep Zoom, Kweller Prep Upside Down and the Monkey Bars. So I just want everyone to know that Dasha is an exceptional person for doing this because she doesn't have to do this. She has a full-time job. She really does not need to deal with me after 10 years. So I just want to say thank you. This is very sincere. I really, really, really want to thank you because we've had a long road together. With that being said, what we're doing today with Dasha, who's a Hunter graduate, we're going to focus on math. We talked about this, Dasha and I, what would be the best use of our time. So the Hunter College High School entrance exam, and at Kweller, we just call it Hunter, and I'm sure Dasha does that also. So the test last year had 50 questions in reading. They were a point apiece. They had 30 questions in math. It was a little over a point apiece. So I just want to let you know the math actually weighed more. And then reading 50 questions, a point apiece, math 30 questions, more than a point apiece. It's easier to accumulate points on the Hunter test by starting with math. And this is a very intelligent strategy because the Hunter test starts with heavy, lengthy, crazy long reading passages. So it's probably a good strategy to start the test from the back. Make sure you bubble one at a time and question by question, and don't lose track of how you're bubbling. You will probably have an easier time accumulating math points. The way that the test works is the 50 reading plus the 30 math. And then you basically, the cutoff score used to be 64 points. Again, I'm speaking past tense. And then around 64 was the cutoff. All of this information we collected because Hunter used to publish everything and they stopped doing it a couple of years ago, but I actually know it off the top of my head. I'm not referring to anything. So with that being said, the exam, basically kids would get 64 points or higher. The top 500 kids would then get their essays read. So everyone's at 0 after they get 64. So everyone pay attention to that number because you're still failing the Hunter test. So you're still failing the Hunter test, but then you're getting your essay read, and 2 to 3 school teachers and 1 student, such as Dasha, read the Hunter essays. They also volunteer the day of the test to proctor. So it's pretty cool. It's actually very prestigious. They get community service that day. I'm going to stop speaking in a minute. I just want to kind of give everyone background, and I also want to give everyone time to enter the room. So basically, this is how it works. Then you enter basically a 0 after 64. Out of 100 points, you just need 64. And Dasha, you're welcome to add to anything that I'm saying right now. So now the best essays, you have to have writing and advanced vocabulary. And Dasha, I do recall you were brutal with the essay grading, giving kids 0s over the years, and you were so tough. And Holy moly. So don't be fooled anyone into thinking she's soft. She's definitely not. Like, I'm still scared of you. All right. So she's very mighty. So I do want to share that with you. Keeping in mind that now everyone, the top 500 scores. And then from there are about 50 kids from the kindergarten to sixth grade. And then the remaining 125, 150 kids, they get an acceptance offer to Hunter. There are about 20, 25 kids who get on the wait list. And Hunter's actually really good about wait list. We have kids every year who get off the wait list. We have twins who get off the wait list. The last thing I want to remind all of you is Hunter is just one opportunity. You are all super intelligent. So I just want to remind you of that. If Hunter doesn't work out, you're going to do the test prep. You're going to be smarter. 2 hours from now, you're just going to be more math intelligent. It's just going to happen. So it's really not like Hunter's, a do or die or an end goal. It's not. Hunter is just one pathway. Maybe your pathway is specialized high school, but you're starting with Hunter prep. So I just want to remind all of you, I think that everyone who needs to be in the Zoom is already in. So we have a good amount of kids right now. You can type questions in the chat if you would like. I'm going to mute myself and I'm going to stay in the background. But I just want to remind all of you, Hunter is one opportunity and there will be many, many opportunities. You are brilliant kids. You are really intelligent. There are like 50,000 sixth graders in New York City. You are part of 3,000 that are invited to take this test. So forget getting into Hunter, like completely take that out of the equation. Just the fact that you're invited to this test is a big deal. It is worthy of a celebration just to get invited. So don't worry about getting into Hunter. Don't worry about it at all. All you need to focus on, it's my reminder, all you need to focus on is that you're learning, and 2 hours from now, you're going to have more knowledge than you had 2 hours ago. That's all you need to focus on. Hunter is one opportunity of many. With that being said, as I'm speaking to you, this course is fully sold out. And I just wish all of you a lot of good luck. Okay. My name is Frances Kweller. I'm a child of immigrants. I'm a lawyer. I run Kweller for like, oh my God, 15 years, 150 years. I don't even know anymore. I had no idea what I was doing 20 years ago. I just want all of you to know that. And then Dasha was like, we need a syllabus. We need a curriculum. We need standards. We need goals. We need a rubric. So I just want to let you know that Dasha is much younger than I am, but she definitely scared me straight over the years. So I'm really, really happy that you're doing this. And I'm very excited. With that being said, I just want to remind you, this is a webinar of love because Dasha is a busy, busy, busy person in the real adult working world. So thank you to everyone who needs to be in it. I wish all of you good luck. We have an amazing turnout. I hope you get smarter an hour and 50 minutes from now with all questions. Dasha, thank you again. I just want to remind you, Dasha, screenshots when you complete the pages. And it uses as much color as possible, if you could, more blue. But with that being said, it's important because I do want the kids to just have some reference points. And that's it, everyone. Good luck. I just want to know that you to know that we're rooting for you and we wish you a lot of good luck. And Dasha, thank you again. I'm going to go on mute.
All right, thank you so much for that introduction, and I'm glad you can all make it. We have such a great turnout. A couple of things before we get started, that if you guys can turn your cameras on, we can make this as interactive and see each other's faces. So it'd be great if you can turn your cameras on, and thank you for those of you who have your cameras on. You are welcome at any point in the chat to drop comments or questions, and I will address them. Someone already had asked a question about the essay and what we're looking for and what the Hunter essay looks like. I know Frances may have made it sound a little bit scary that I give out a bunch of zeros, but I promise it's not that bad. I'm sure you are all great writers and you must have been doing very well in school to have been invited to take the test. But when you first start studying, you might realize that you don't know exactly how to approach this kind of essay if you've never done it before. hence where sometimes the zeros come in. They're not meant to be personal. They're not meant to say you're a bad writer. They're meant to say that you just simply have not learned what the Hunter essay is. And what you will learn through the course here, or if you've already started studying, you'll see it very soon, that the Hunter essay is just personal, it is formal, it is structured. They are asking a lot of you. They want to really see what kind of a person you are and what kind of a writer you are, and you want to share something interesting and use great vocabulary and great descriptions, while also, you know, having like strong 4 or 5 paragraphs. Should be about 2 pages, and you're writing this by hand on a test that you already don't have a lot of time on. So you can see how at first it might seem very daunting, but I promise that over time it does get easy. And I've taught this enough years, and I've seen so many students at the end of the course say that they can write these 4 or 5 paragraph 2-page essays at some point in 20-25 minutes, and it turns out amazing just because they're so used to doing it after taking the Kweller courses. A couple other questions that came in is that, do you need to if you need more space, you'll only get the 2 pages, so you want to make sure you're mindful of your handwriting, whether it's the size or like how legible it is. So if you have really messy handwriting, now is a great time to work on it. Very helpful in math too, because as we'll see in the kinds of questions that there'll be in the math section of the Hunter test, they will require a lot of writing. Sounds weird, right? Math and writing, but it's because there's going to be a lot of steps, there's going to be a lot of diagrams, and you have to stay organized. No one can force you to stay organized, no one can help you. It's going to be your test. And if you're used to doing everything in your head, this might be the time that you won't be able to do it anymore. You can absolutely multiply all the numbers that you can in your head, but when a question's asking for 4 or 5 steps, it gets a little bit harder, and you have more than enough space to write out all your explanations. Another question said can they just write 1 page on the essay? We recommend for the essay to write at least 1.5 to 2 pages. So you can get you can show as much of your talents and abilities as you can. I think you'll learn more about this in the essay webinar that we're hosting. So just stay tuned for that. And of course, I can talk about it a little more later at the end. So talk a little bit about math. I don't know how familiar you guys are with the test, so I do want to give you guys a little bit of the basics. So you all have taken state tests. You've all taken the math state tests. The Hunter math is not like that. It is not what you are learning in school. So again, at first, it's going to sound super hard and it sounds impossible to do. The Hunter test is designed to weed out the students that can do these questions really quickly and find patterns, and the students that are going to do it by brute force or do everything very slowly. And what that goes to say is that every single question on this test has a pattern, it has a shortcut, and there is a way to solve it. And we're going to look at a couple of problems like that today and talk about some strategies and ways to approach these kinds of questions and what we should be looking for. That being said, if you guys have a notebook, it would be really helpful. You can join in on solving these questions with us and even contributing your answers. So let's talk a little bit about Hunter math. We could talk about some of the topics. Just to give like a pretty brief overview.
Can you make it larger, please? Let's make the font large, or the screen larger.
I can make the font larger.
That works.
It's just screen sharing. So one of the things that you'll see is algebra, right? When you're dealing with things like x's and values that you don't know. Multiplying, adding, right, dividing, subtracting, things like that. You will see geometry, finding volume, area, surface area of different kinds of shapes. Sometimes you will be given the formula, sometimes you won't. So it's really helpful to memorize at least some of the very basic shapes, circles, squares, triangles, things like that. You will see things with exponents, right? Learning how to work with them. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today in some of our sample problems. Order of operations, right? You'll get sometimes some pretty long questions and you have to sort of break them down. But again, not hard in terms of what you're doing within it. And a big section is also logic. And we'll talk about what that means because logic seems like a very broad category compared to the rest of these. And a lot of Hunter questions are questions that you won't see in your common classroom because they fall under this category of kind of like logic games. So any questions on the topics, feel free to drop it in the chat and I'll address it. There could be more that pop up from time to time, such as probability, percentages, things like that. So there are other smaller things that can be included. I want to start you guys off with a question. When I talk about Hunter logic and I talk about how we can make long questions short, I want to propose to you guys a question for you to try. If you know the answer, great. Feel free to put it in the chat. Just make sure you don't share it with everyone. Or if you don't, take a stab at it. What if we asked you to add all of the numbers from 1 to 100? How would we do it? How would you do it? Would you make a list and start adding them? 1 plus 2 is 3, 3 plus 3 is 6, 6 plus 4 is 10. Could you? Yeah, but that might take a very long time. So on the Hunter test, they're gonna want you to think of a shortcut, right? How can I get to this? And there are shortcuts. And I see, based on what you guys are saying in the chat, many of you already had it. Awesome. So I'm so glad to see that so many of you have gotten the answer. And most of you are right. So let's talk about how we get this. There's a lot of ways to call this method. My favorite way to call it is the rainbow method, just because I like to see it as a rainbow. And the way I look at it is instead of going just straight through, I want to find the pattern. So I'm going to say, well, if I do 1 and 100, that's going to give me 101. And then if I take 2 and 99, that's also going to give me 101. And what if I take 3 and 98? That's also 101. So what we've just proven or shown is that we're actually going to have a bunch of pairs of 101. How many pairs? Well, if there's 100 numbers and each one is in a pair, then that gives us 50 numbers. And so as most of you said, this comes out to 5,050. So how much time did I just save instead of adding all these numbers? All I did was a quick multiplication of 101 times 50. Right, so we just saved ourselves a lot of time and that would be the answer. Now, if every question on the test could be like this and we could always use the same strategy, it would be super, super easy. Unfortunately, it's not that simple. This is one strategy for one kind of question that we see, but there are going to be many, many more. So this is just a glimpse of what we mean by logic. Someone asked why are we multiplying it by 50? It's because from 1 to 100, there are 100 numbers. And because each number is in a pair, we now have 50 pairs of numbers that add up to 101. Right? And you could think about it, if you did write out all of the numbers, you would make 50 pairs, right? Every single one. Okay. Now, if you guys saw, I'll stop sharing that. If you guys saw the email and you saw that there were a couple of packets that were attached. So we're going to go through some of them and we're going to skip around. So if you want to take a look at it, you can look at it on the in the email. But I will also have it up here. This is starting with the very first one, which is called Arithmetic Beyond the Basics. It's the first one, and you can click on the unannotated one. And we'll look at some of these problems.
And I just want to remind everyone, we have sent this as a text message. We have sent this as an email. So you should just look back and you will find this. I'm not Dasha, if you're able to put in the chat, but all of you should already have this. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, you should have it. If you don't have it, don't worry about it. The questions will all be on my screen, so you can also copy them down in your notebook, which So let's look at this very first question. What is the value of 4 times parentheses -1 + 2 - 3 + 4 - 5 + 6 - 7 all the way to 1,000? Now if any of you thought that the adding all the numbers from 1 to 100 looks scary, now this looks even scarier, right? Not only do we have more numbers, but now all of a sudden we have this plus and this minus, and we're multiplying it by 4. If any of you want to take a stab at it in your notebook, feel free to give it a try. And I see some of you already did, which is really awesome. But again, we're looking for the trick, right? Obviously, no one's going to add and subtract all these numbers. So one way to approach these questions is to do a couple in the beginning and see what is the pattern that we're looking at. So getting some different numbers, interesting. But let's take a look. If we take this first piece, -1 + 2, that gives us 1, right? Then -3 + 4, well, that also gives us 1. So it looks like every pair here adds up to 1. So on and so forth. Now, how many do we have? Well, if we have 1 + 1 + 1 all the way up to 1,000, then in each pair, then we have 1,000 divided by 2 gives us 500 pairs, right? It's we're adding 1,000 ones, but they're paired, so it's 500. So is that our answer, 500? Not quite, right? We can't forget a second important piece of this, the 4. This is something that they will always try to trick you with on the Hunter test. They will frequently give you a question like this, and you might forget that tiny little 4 in the beginning, and I promise that something like the 500 will be an answer choice. 1,000 might be an answer choice if you forget to divide by 2 to get the pairs. So they're waiting to catch you at any moment. So, and we have to be better than that because we know we're looking for these tricks. So we have 500 that are paired, and we can't forget that we have this 4 outside. So 4 times 500 gives us a final answer of 2,000. Take a minute to think about that. Ask any questions that you have on this in the chat. And see how this compares also to the previous question that we did.
Hey, Dasha, do you mind typing putting the link in the chat? One of the parents is asking for the link. We did already email this to you, but if you scroll down in that email, you will see the link. But Dasha will also put it into the chat. Okay, is that all right?
Let me see if I have it. I do have it. Perfect. Okay, I just put it out to everyone. Okay, I'll let you guys take a minute. I recommend copying this down, copying our work so you know how to approach this. So a couple of questions that people asked. Will you get calculators? So that was a good question because some of these questions can easily be solved if we had a calculator. Unfortunately, the answer is no. So there are also going to be questions that are just time trap questions that will simply just take you a lot of time. And they want to make sure that you're able to balance your time to solve those questions and the pattern questions. So you will not get a calculator. Okay, if we all have this down, I'm going to clear this so we can move on to the second one. This question is asking, what is the correct ordering of the 3 numbers 5 over 19, 7 over 21, and 9 over 23 in increasing order. Now, they gave us these numbers on purpose, right? They're not nice and easily comparable numbers, right? If we told you 1/2, 1/3, and 1/4, I'm sure we can easily order them. Now, these are a little bit more tricky because they're all odd and they don't make perfect fractions that we can simplify. One of them does though, right? 7 over 21, we can simplify this into 1/3. So save ourselves a little bit of time. Now, I don't know how you have learned this in school, but when I was young, I learned a really cool method to check which fraction of 2 is larger or smaller. And you line them up next to each other. So 5 over 19. And we'll take 1/3 here, for example. By the way, someone mentioned one of the best ways to do this is using the least common multiple and getting the same denominator. But think about how much time it's going to take us to figure out the least common multiple of 19, 21, and 23. Right, 2 of which are prime numbers. That would be really, really big. So that's why in this case, we're looking for a shorter version. So the way I learned it was to write them out next to each other and then multiply the numerators and denominators across. So here I would get 5 times 3, this side is 15, 19 times 1 is 19. So 19 is bigger than 15, so 1/3 is bigger than 5 over 19, right? Pac-Man eats the bigger side. Some people call this the cross multiplication strategy or something like that. So whichever one you want to use. So far we have that 1/3 or 7 over 21 is bigger than 5 over 19. Now we're not done yet. We still have to check the other one. I'll use 1/3 again because I don't want to multiply the big numbers of 7 and 21. And we're gonna compare it to 9 over 23. Same strategy, multiply across. 3 times 9 gave us 27. 1 times 23 is 23. So 9 over 23 is bigger than 1/3. So what do we know? We know that 5 over 19 is less than 1/3, and 1/3 is less than 9 over 23. And we can remember that obviously the number that we're using here isn't actually 1/3, but it's 7 over 21. So there we go. We solved that question in pretty much under a minute. So let me give you guys a chance to copy this.
You guys can also take pictures and screenshots just to practice all of this.
Yeah, feel free to take screenshots, anything that will help you guys practice. And any questions? Why does a cross multiplication work? Someone asked. It's essentially the same thing as doing the least common multiple. It's just a shortcut. I'm sure that there's somewhere a proof to explain this, but for our purposes, it's enough to know that it works. So yeah, good to know the cross multiplication strategy for any other time that you might need to do this. Okay, any questions, or can I clear this one out? Okay. Someone asked if all the questions are about this hardness. So I would say that in the beginning, sometimes the questions do start easy. So there are a couple of easier questions at the beginning, and then they progressively get harder. I would say a lot of them are this hard, but if you think about so far, at least what we've done in terms of math, we have not gone anywhere past multiplication, and addition, right? So we didn't have to memorize any formulas or anything that's beyond the grade level. We're just learning how to use the tools that we already know in a new and different way. So it may appear very, very hard at first, and I agree, it is definitely not easy, especially for students who have never approached questions like this, because it's not what you learn in school. And I can guarantee that, you know, anyone who feels this way is not alone, because we all felt like this, and I did take the Hunter test, so I remember I felt like this. But they do become easier to solve as time goes on, and they do get harder and easier. So I just wanted to cover a little bit of different topics and things. Okay, then we are skipping ahead a little bit to talk about exponents. You may have seen them, you may have worked with them, you may not have. So aside from knowing that they exist, it's also helpful. Oh. We're not going to do 1.3 because there are no answer choices. And I'm generally handpicking questions that I think are closer to what's going to be on the test. So if we're skipping a question, it's done by design. So I wouldn't worry about them. Okay, now if we look at 1.4, so it tells us 3 to the power of p plus 3 to the power of 4 equals 90, 2 to the power of r plus 44 equals 76, and 5 to the power of 3 plus 6 to the power of s equals 1,421. What is the product of p, r, and s? So if you have worked with exponents and you know them pretty well, this question is easy. It just takes a lot of time because there's 3 different variables and 3 different steps that you have to go through. Now we'll do it step by step. But feel free if you guys want to take a stab at it in your notebook, and you can drop the answer in the chat if you want to take a look at it. It's helpful, it'll be helpful, we'll see in a bit, to also memorize the exponent rules, which if you have the link open, you'll see that they are right above the questions here. Okay. Not as many answers right away for this one. See, it does take a little bit more time. I'll give you guys another 30 seconds in case anyone wants to try it on their own before we do it as a group. Okay. Okay, a couple more answers came in. So not as many as last time, but let's take a stab at it together. So let's look at it one at a time. Let's take this first piece. 3 to the p power plus 3 to the 4th power is 90. So 3 to the p, 3 to the 4th. What we can do is figure out 3 to the 4th, right? It's not as big of a number that we wouldn't be able to solve it, you know, either in our head or on paper. And what does it mean to do 3 to the 4th? It means we're multiplying 3 by itself 4 times. So it's the same thing as doing 9 times 9 or 81. So if we say 81 plus 3 to the p equals 90, we can subtract 81 from both sides to say that 3 to the p power equals 9. And lucky for us, this number is easy enough that we can figure out how many times you have to multiply 3 by itself to get 9, which tells us that P equals 2. Not too bad. Let's look at the second one.
Dasha, can you just make the numbers bigger? And again, old. I don't need bigger numbers. All right, thank you.
Yeah. The other one is, the next one is 2 to the R power plus 44 equals 76. Let me just make these bigger while I'm here. Okay, and someone asked again how we got that P equals 2. Well, just to repeat that part, we said that 3 to the 4th was 81 by doing 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. We then subtracted that 81 from 90 to get that 3 to the P power is 9. And we just wanted to know how many times we multiply 3 by itself to get 9. Well, 3 times 3 is 9, so that's 2 3s, so P is 2. Now for R, we can do 76 minus 44, and that's 32. And now we're asking ourselves the same question, except not with 3 anymore, but with 2. We're saying 2 to what power equals 32? Now this one's not as obvious, but still doable, because you can really, whether you want to do it on your fingers or not, you can count up 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 5 times. So P is 2, R is 5. Next, if you are doing it alongside us, you can follow along and see if your numbers are correct so far. Last one is 5 cubed plus 6 to the S power is 1421. Now remember, you're doing all of this without calculators. So part of the struggle here is doing this quickly and making sure you get the right answer. So 5 cubed is 125, plus 6 to the S power equals 1421. We can subtract 1421 minus 125, gave us 1296. And that tells us that 6 to the S power is 1296. And you can count up by multiplying, starting with 6 times 6 is 36, 36 times 6, and you will get that S equals 4. So we're almost done. We've got everything that we needed. We know what P, we know what R is, and we know what S is. So our final last step is to read back to the question, figure out what did they want from us. They want the product. And that's really important, because you might solve all of these, but until you figure out what they want as the product, not the sum, not anything else, not even just the 3 numbers, that's the only way to get the right answer. So 2 times 5 times 4. For those of you who put 40 in the chat, you were correct. But note the time that this took, because there were 3 different steps. We need to work on, everyone in class, work on trying to do these things much faster, because that's the only real strategy that we can do. Okay. I'll keep this up so you guys have a chance to copy it. And I'm saving a screenshot of it. Feel free to ask any questions about this, if any of this didn't make sense, if you want to repeat this. So someone asked what would happen if we had much bigger numbers for this kind of question. Something beautiful about the 100 test is that everything that they do is something that you can do, you know, either in your head or on paper. You won't be getting numbers like 5 to the 53rd power unless there's some way that, you know, we're simplifying it. They will never ask you to multiply such great numbers. And if you do see questions like that, take our example of adding all the numbers from 1 to 100. There's going to be a shortcut. Okay, any other questions before we continue? Okay. Now let's scroll down to this last one. Compute 4 to the 5th power times 5 to the 7th power. Now 5 to the 7th power is already an example of one of the kinds of numbers that we don't want to multiply. Remember, you don't have a calculator. So if you guys want to take a stab at it, let us know what you get. Just for reference, right, I put it into a calculator just to show you guys. 5 to the 7th power is 78,125. You will never have to multiply numbers that high by hand. Clearly, there must be a shortcut here. So if you do try to solve this, look up at the page for the rules that might help you. And obviously the hint is there for a reason. And be very mindful if you're going to submit your answer in the chat, just be mindful of how many zeros, if there are zeros, right? How many places there are. And we'll talk about it in a second. I already got a couple answers, so I'm really glad to see this. Just for reference, I'm not going to respond to anyone's messages about whether their answers are correct. I've just been getting a couple. I do encourage you to add them in so we can just kind of take a tally as a group, but you'll see the answer once we review it together. Just wanted to put that out there. And many, many of you are right, so looking good. All right, let's talk about it. So they told us that 4 is 2 squared. They didn't do that by accident. There is a 4 here. So 4 to the 5th power can be rewritten as 2 squared, since that's what 4 is, to the 5th power. Now, let's be very careful, and this is one of those moments where we have to memorize what the exponent rules are, because you can't do 2 plus 5 is 7. You have to multiply them. This is the same thing as 2 to the 10th power. So I saw a couple of people made a mistake there, so just be mindful. So we can rewrite this question as 2 to the 10th power times 5 to the 7th power. But then someone's going to ask, well, what was the point of doing that? Now we just have a 2 and a 5 instead of a 4 and a 5, right? How did that help me? Well, there is another way we can use our exponent rule. We can break up this 2 to the 10th power into 2 to the 7th power and 2 to the 3rd power. Now, why can I do that? Because one of the exponent rules says that if you have the same base and you're multiplying them, you can add the powers together. Now, this would be the same as saying 2 to the 6th power times 2 to the 4th power, or 2 to the 8th power times 2 to the 2nd power. Why did I choose these numbers, 7 and 3? Not by accident. And if anyone can figure out why, it's because there's a 7 here and a 7 here, which will lead us to yet another exponent rule. Yeah, someone said that we can combine the 7s. So 2 cubed times 2 to the 7th times 5 to the 7th. Now another rule states that if I have the same exponent, I can multiply the bases and keep the exponent to get 2 cubed times 10 to the 7th. Now, what's 2 cubed? 2 times 2 times 2. That one we can do in our head. That's 8. And what's really fun about anything involving 10 to the powers is that all we have to do is just add a bunch of zeros, right? We don't actually have to multiply anything. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, really helpful to always add in your commas so you know what it is instead of getting lost in the zeros. And we have 8 times 10 million to get the correct answer of 80 million. Great job to all of you who got it. And for those of you who didn't, take a look at how we got this, see how your answer compared if you got an answer. And yeah, ask any questions. We can absolutely review this a million more times if you need to.
I just want to quickly unmute myself. I want to remind all of you, every question on the Hunter exam, the math, they're all worth the same equal amount of points. So, and Dasha will reiterate that, but each math question, assuming there are 30 questions, they're each worth the same. So if you catch yourself spending more than a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, don't stress over one question because you're not really concerned about the amount of points that you're trying to get. So your priority should be getting numerically as many questions as you can. So that's your number one goal. And I just want to remind all of you that that's it. And Dasha, of course, can reiterate and share her own wisdom, but we definitely don't want you to get like stuck on question 65. You need to make it all the way to 80. So the goal is to get point accumulation. So please remember this very important advice. Okay.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. And yeah, let me just add to that. Many of you will always learn through school that I'm better at geometry, but I struggle with probability, or I'm really good at algebra, or I'm really bad at something else. So use your strengths to your advantage and solve the questions that you know how to solve first. Obviously, be very, very careful with bubbling, as you always should be. But some of the questions, as I mentioned, especially in the beginning, are going to be shorter and easier. So it makes sense to solve those first and then work on the challenging ones. Also, because I mentioned that many of these questions will have a lot of steps and be more complicated, always roadmap, right? Think, how am I going to solve this question before I even do it? Especially this comes up a lot in geometry. When you have really complex looking shapes, ask yourself, what am I going to do to figure this out? Do I need to find this area first and that area and then subtract them or add them, right? And if you see from your roadmap that, this is going to take me maybe 5 minutes to do, I would skip that question, come back to it if I have time at the end, right? Because no question, hard or easy, is worth more than another one. So it's about getting as many questions as you can, not getting the number one hardest or all of the easiest.
And if it's okay, I want to add to it because I really want to bring it home. I've taken so many tests the SAT, the PSAT, the LSAT, oh my God, I've taken everything. And Dasha can also go through a short list as well. It's about point accumulation. So again, I'm giving you my advice. The reading passages are long and hard and long and long and long, and it's just so much to read. It's just easier to start with math. Math is just more stimulating. It's more interactive. Your wrist, your hand is in motion. If you could bubble one question at a time, start from the back of the test, knock those math questions out, get, 25, 30 points. I mean, I don't know, Dash, if you want to do something like just a simple, let's say we get like 30. What's 30 out of the 50? And then I'm just to give you some like simple ideas, and then you just have to get like half the reading right. This is also a common SHSAT strategy where a lot of kids, I don't want to say game the system. Dasha, can you help me with the vocabulary choices I'm using? I don't want to say that. What I want to say is you just want to be clever. If you can go faster and if you can accumulate more points with the math, start with the math. The reading questions, there are 50 questions probably. There were last year. And figure they're a point apiece, but reading is long. You're better off, I would say, start with the math, go to reading. The essay prompts will be right in the center of the exam. What I would suggest, bring a watch. Make sure you bring a wrist watch, place it on your desk, set it to 12, exactly 12 o'clock. As soon as they say you may begin, right away, give yourself an hour to knock those math questions out, as many as you can. Then go to the reading section. Then go and make sure you allocate time with the essay. I like to take no chances at all. With the essay, I would go into that exam. I know 10 transitional phrases I'm going to use, 10 vocabulary words I'm going to use, 5 topics I'm definitely amazing and ready to talk about and write about. Like, I would go into the exam knowing what I'm going to write about, knowing this is my strategy. I would take 10 sharpened pencils with me, not 2, not 3. I would go in safely into this exam. That's what I would do. Take chances. Dasha, if you're able to add to that, that would be great.
Yeah, and there's a question that came in about that. Are you allowed to start from the back of the test? The answer is yes. You can do it in any order you want, unlike some of the standardized tests that you may have already taken. And because you can do it in any order you want, be mindful of like, what are my strengths and weaknesses, and work in that favor. And one thing to note about the essay there is that, as Francis mentioned earlier, whether you just made the cutoff or you got a perfect score on the multiple choice, it doesn't matter once you're at the essay. So it's really important that you give yourself enough time to write that essay. I do not recommend saving it for last, personally, just because if you run out of ideas or you run out of time, that would be bad, right? Because even if you got 100% and you got every multiple choice question right, and that's incredible, right? That's so rare. But if you didn't finish your essay, it doesn't matter, right? Because someone who barely passed the multiple choice but had all this time and wrote a beautiful essay, guess who's getting in, right? They are. So generally I recommend, and I think that what we generally say is to spend about an hour on each section. Yes, we understand that the math only has 30 and that the reading has 50 and that the essay is the essay. But about an hour per section. And if you're better at one and you're worse at another, then maybe give yourself an extra 10, 15 minutes in that section and 15 less minutes in the other section. You will, throughout this course, take enough tests to figure out what works for you. France, did you want to add something to that?
I did want to add to it. Don't spend your 3 hours, specifically your final hour, let's say with the essay, because sometimes the passage, you have to read the passage and it's connected to the essay. And last year they had a graphic essay, it was a visual essay. It was the arrival, it was a bunch of pictures. Go into that exam knowing I'm going to use 10 transitions, like consequently, furthermore, historically,
anecdotally. Like I would learn how to spell the word anecdotally. Like I would just know how to spell 10 transitions. I would go into that test. I would even before the test starts, I would write down 10 transitions I'm definitely going to use. And I would do it on scratch paper. I would write it before the test even starts. I'm definitely using these 10 vocabulary words from Kweller. I'm definitely using these 10 transitions. By the way, the essay is not even asking you to tell the truth. There's no polygraph, there's no lie detector. They're not even asking you to be honest in the essay. You can literally write your essay falsely. Like they just want to see writing style. Are you using elevated vocabulary? Are you using variety of sentence structure? I would definitely put a semicolon into my essay. Like no matter what, I'm putting a semicolon. No matter what, I'm putting in transitions. No matter what, I'm going to make sure that I have elevated vocabulary in, like, I just wouldn't leave it to chance. And I definitely I would go into that exam very prepared. I know that no matter what, I have 4 or 5 topics I can write about. And it's also a visual essay, it's a descriptive essay. They've had prompts in the past, but this year they had write about a picture. It was like an immigration journey. I would just go into it, whatever you need to do, just write. And it's not about like being honest. It's not about telling the truth. It's about writing a creative piece. I can actually go to the Hunter page and I'm going to put this into the chat. So you'll see exactly what they're expecting of you from this essay. So I'm going to write that in, Dash, and I'll put myself on mute.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to ask you one more question that came in from the chat. Maybe you'd know better. Someone said they heard last year the section that had word associations. Do we think that that would come up again?
I mean, we can't predict anything, so we're just going to safely assume that the test is similar to the last 2 exams that are on the Hunter website. So that's probably, let's just assume that's what we're doing. There was a dramatic change with the essay last year where they used picture. It was you had to select pictures, you had to write about pictures. Like, I don't care what I have to write about. I'll write about the moon. Like, I will write about anything. I just will make sure the vocabulary is good, the writing style is good, it's creative, it's elevated, it has a variety of sentence structure. I'm gonna put in the chat, I want everyone to see what Hunter is telling you about the essay. All right, I'm gonna put myself back on mute.
Yeah, and I also to share something that I did with my students a bunch of times is, Francis, right, we can never predict what's actually going to be on the test or what they're going to ask you to write about. So as a fun activity, whether you want to do this at home or maybe you'll get to do it in class, is that I gave my students either pictures or random topics, like Francis, like even the moon. And I said, write a whole story about the moon. We did an exercise where my whole class got the same sentence and we all had to construct different stories that were elaborate, descriptive, had beautiful vocabulary, all from the same one sentence. And it's incredible how, in a class of 10, 8, or however many students, right, we can come up with so many different stories. And that goes to say that in the bigger picture, right, when you are taking this test, and there are so many of you taking the test, everyone has a different story to tell. And no one is judging you based on what you are saying in terms of someone who can say, I did go to the moon, and someone who may have never left New York City, right? We're not judging you on what you've done or what you've accomplished, but it's about how you describe it. We've also written stories about telling us about your walk to school or how you get to school, right? It seems really simple, seems really boring. But the point is to make it as interesting and incredible as you can, regardless of the topic. So yeah, any other questions about that, feel free to put in the chat. I will address. Someone asked, is there going to be a planning page? Yes, there is. You will in class be discussing how to use that space most efficiently, right? You don't want to waste too much time planning, but you also want to make sure that it's not blank so that you're not just free writing.
I mean, what's it going to take you guys? 5 minutes out of the hour to write 10 transitions out, spell everything out, 10 vocabulary words out. Memorize 5 topics that you're really good at writing about. Like, go in heavily prepared. Like, don't go in like thinking what to write about. Like, literally think of 5 great topics that you're comfortable writing about. And that's how you're going to go into the exam. That's really the best advice we can give you. And then obviously we're going to go more into math. We're spending a lot of time, mentioning essay because essay really will make or break the test. But go in like a tiger, like go in prepared. Go in knowing that you're going to use these vocabulary words, these transitions, these topics are the ones that are sure hit. Anyway, let's go back to math.
Yeah, I was just going to say, great segue back into math. This is question 1.6. The question says, which of these numbers, 2 to the 100th power, 3 to the 75th power, and 5 to the 50th power is the largest? So we just did this not that long ago with the fractions, but now we can't use the same strategy, right? Fractions don't apply here. Am I going to multiply 2 by itself 100 times? No way, right? I'm going to figure out a shortcut here. And luckily, they give us a hint. Can we write them out to have the same exponent? Now, what does that mean? Does that mean I can just rewrite them to have the same exponent? No, I have to use the exponent rules that were on the previous page. So take a minute, see if you can figure it out. This is a more challenging one. So don't be upset if you don't figure it out, but we'll review it together. Just for reference, I'll write out the rule that might be helpful. And it's that a to the power of b, you might already know this, but a to the power of b to the power of c is a to the b times c. This is the rule that's going to mostly help us for this question. So I'll give you guys a minute, take a look at it. You have all the hints that you need, see if you can figure it out. So a couple of different answers, a lot more disagreement, but I'm glad to see that a lot of people are getting to it and figuring it out. And some of you are giving your explanations, which is super awesome. Glad to see how you're processing this. So keep thinking, see what you get, and then we can compare. And of course, in questions like this, it's not as easy as saying, oh, well, 5 is the biggest number, so it must be 5 to the 50th. It's also not as easy as saying, oh, well, 2 it's at the 100th power, so that must be the biggest one. And it's not 3 to the 75th power just because it's the one in the middle either, right? We have to do the math and we have to figure out how they compare. Okay, I will get started. Thank you all for sharing what you've been able to come up with. Thank you for sharing your explanations. Very, very helpful for us. So let's start with the first one. to the 100. Now I'm looking at my exponents, 100, 75, and 50. And the hint told me to write it out so that they have the same exponent. So I want to see, what do they have in common? What's the common factor? 25. So what if I write everything in factor of 25? So for 100, it'd be 2 to the 25th power times 2 to the 4th power. For 3 to the 75th, it would be 3 to the 25th and 3 to the 3rd. Apologies for my handwriting. And 5 to the 50th would be 5 to the 25th times 5 squared. So let's see. In the first one, we would get 16 to the 25th. In the second one, we get 27 to the 25th. In the third one, we get 25 to the 25th. So now we just made it really easy for ourselves. If they have the same exponents, then sorry, I have to rewrite this, but if they have the same exponents, we can compare their bases. Give me 1 second. What I meant to say before you guys come in here, let me just. The 4, the 3, and the 2 are being multiplied in the exponent, not outside of it. So sorry, that wasn't as clear. So basically, if we do 2 to the 25th times 24, times 4, this is the same as doing 2 to the 25th or 2 to the 4th to the 25th power using that rule we wrote down. And from there, 2 to the 4th is 16, so you get 16 to the 25th power. Sorry to clarify that. Let me just repeat that to be clear. 2 to the 100th power is the same as 2 to the power of 25 times 4, right? I didn't actually change anything. I just rewrote 100 as 25 times 4, and it's all in the exponent. But then, using that rule that's in blue, a to the b to the c power equals a to the b times c, I can make one in parentheses and put another one above it in another exponent. So 2 to the 4th power to the 25th power is how we rewrote it, which is over here. And 2 to the 4th power we can solve because that's an easy number, and that's 16, so we have 16 to the 25th power. I'll write out another one just to show you guys that it's exactly the same. 3 to the 25th, 25 times 3rd power, I can rewrite it as 3 to the 3rd power to the 25th power, and that is 9 to the 27 to the 25th power. So I hope that helps clear it up. Someone also asked, how is the multiple choice graded? It's pretty simple. It's in a Scantron or bubble sheet that you may have seen in other tests, and they put it through a machine. So it's nothing fancier than what you're used to. Okay. So what is it graded out of? Well, there are 80 questions. So it is graded out of 80 questions and then converted into a percent out of 100. And yes, the math questions are more valuable than the reading questions because the reading and math sections each have the same value. So I hope that answers your questions about that. And yeah, someone put us back on track. So which one is greatest? Well, if they have the same exponent, then it must be the one with the largest base, which would be 27 to the 25th power, which was 3 to the 75th power. So those of you who said it was 3 to the 75th, you are correct. So another question, is your math and reading average? And the answer is no, right? Because they're valued differently. You get one sum out of 80 questions, and then that you get a percent for. So they won't know, for example, that I got 100% in the math, but then only 50% in the reading. They'll just see my whole sum of multiple choice. So if you're very strong in one and not so much in the other, they will not be able to see that or, make anything up. So back to this, take a minute to copy this, ask any other questions you have. This was a little bit challenging in terms of, figuring out how to manipulate these numbers. And someone asked, how many questions do you have to get right? There's no number base. I know Francis mentioned this a little bit earlier. You have to get about a 64%, I believe. So you can do the math, how much that is. It does vary. It has not been the same. What they're really looking for is the top 500 scores. So if one year a test is really, really hard, then that number might be lower. If the test is really, really easy, that number might be higher. So really, the advice is just do as well as you can. Do not focus on these numbers, right? Focus on your own improvement as you take tests in the course and just doing your best. But understanding that obviously you don't need 100% or 90% like you usually would in school. Okay, a bunch of questions about the test. All right. Do you have to show your work to get credit? I hate saying this, but the answer is no, right? Because they're only looking at your bubble sheet, they're not looking at your work. As a teacher, we always look at your work. Show your work, right? Mainly because some of the questions, yeah, you can probably do in your head, save yourself the time, but a lot of them, there are so many traps, there's so many silly places that you can get stuff wrong that it really, really helps you to show your work. You don't have to write it out as I'm doing here, for example, like to teach a class, but you have to make sure that you can understand your work, that you can go back to it, reread it, and understand, what you did to make sure you did it right. Can these questions appear on the test? Yes, they can. Some of them could have been past or future questions. I've seen very similar ones with different numbers, so yes. Would you advise us to do math or essay first? Well, I think Francis spoke about advising to do the math first. I don't advise doing the essay first. I would advise doing either math or reading, depending which one is your strong subject, so that you feel more confident, you get it out of your way. Then I recommend doing the essay in the middle, and then I recommend doing your like hardest section, just power through it. But like I said before, you're going to take a bunch of tests, try out different strategies. Maybe you do want to do the essay first for some reason. Maybe you do want to do reading first. So try it out different ways, see how it makes you feel, right? Does it make you stressed out more? Does it make it feel easier? Does it go by faster? It's very different for every person. Does the essay mean the most? In a way, yeah, it does, right? Because that's going to be the make it or break it part. But at the same time, your essay is not going to matter unless you do well enough on the multiple choice. So they're all equally important. Can you do the work on the test, or do you need scrap paper? You can write all over your test, front and back. You can write "I hate Hunter" all over it, and no one will know. I don't recommend doing that, but definitely show your work right all over the test. Annotate the passages. If you can bring a highlighter, bring a highlighter. Underline, take notes, right? Do whatever you have to do to stay an active reader. How many points is each math question worth? You can actually do this math. I think it's about 1 2/3. But if math and reading are weighed equally and there's 30 math questions and 50 reading questions, you can solve that algebra. Does the spelling on the essay really matter or have to be perfect? Are any of us perfect? No. Are all of us always perfect spellers? Also no. Should we know how to spell common words? Yes. So if you made 1 or 2 spelling mistakes on complicated vocabulary words, but it's still clear what the word is, don't worry about it. If you are commonly misspelling simple words that you should know how to spell, that's where you should really work on your spelling. So generally that just comes with practice and a lot of writing. So we always suggest that you practice writing by hand, right? Not typing, because I know a lot of it in school, you can type all your essays on the computer, right? And you got spell check and grammar check and everything helping you there, not on the essay. Can you write in cursive? Yes, but I would be very, very cautious about, is your cursive neat enough? Talk to your tutors, talk to teachers, right? As long as your handwriting is neat and legible. And I know for many people, cursive is not the neatest way to write. So take that with a grain of salt. And I think last question, then we'll go on to the next math question, is what do I recommend bringing to the test? Obviously, as Ms. Kweller pointed out, pens, pencils, highlighters, erasers. Be prepared. Like, you don't know what you're going to need, but just be prepared. Obviously, water and snacks. I think they started allowing snacks. I would check with whatever the up-to-date thing is when that time comes around, but definitely water. Don't bring your phones. Don't bring anything that might get you kicked out. Things like that. And don't overdo it with, like, you don't need a million colored pens, something like that, right? If you want to have like 1 highlighter and 1 or 2 different colors to help annotate stuff, but do not, don't go overboard, because it will, you're going to be too focused on these colors or all these things that you brought with you instead of the actual test. You do need to bring your own pencils and erasers. I'm sure that if in the case of an emergency, someone will have an extra pencil, but you don't want that to be you, right? Kweller has enough pens and pencils that they will happily give them to you for the exam. Watches, I think they're very strict on no Apple Watches, nothing that's techie or can have a calculator or communicate with the outside world. Bring a regular watch, right? Don't make it harder for yourself. Don't let yourself get kicked out. Bringing a regular watch, like a classic, I think digital watches are fine. Again, you should check that. But regular watches are the best, and we really, really support what Mrs. Kweller said about setting your watch to 12 o'clock, regardless of when you start. So you're not like thinking, if I start at 12:36 and now it's 12:48, how much time do I have left in the section? If you start at 12, regardless what time it is, if your watch says 12, you know how much time you have left. So really quick, easy strategy. It's going to save you some stress. I already answered this question, but do you get extra paper for the essay? No, they must fit within those 2 pages. Do they have a timer in the room? Yes. If you've ever taken a proctored test where there is someone, tracking your time, that there's always a clock in the room. So you can track your own time, and there's people I was a proctor before, and I would always put, like, this is the time you started, this is the time now, and this is the time that ends. And we do the same thing at Kweller when we teach. But as you know, not everyone updates it every 5 minutes. So sometimes you might only know every half hour or something like that, which is why we don't recommend like relying on it. So if you don't have a watch, look at the clock in the room, but just plan ahead for that. Okay. Whew, that was a lot of Hunter questions. Anything else? Or should we go on to our next question? Okay, on the essay, do you get 2 pieces of paper or do we get 1 page and write on the back? I believe it's front and back. I don't think that should make a difference if they do happen to give 2 pages or whatever it works. What I do remember though is that I don't have essay paper, but on the essay paper, there is like an outline and it's like in black, like there's like a black box around the lines. So you can't, like, if you're running out of space, don't try to like write on the margins or go around or like squeeze stuff in. What's going to fit in the box is it. You might be able to get like a last line at the bottom, but you can't, like, you cannot try to squish and write around the margins and all of that. Be neat, be clear, don't overdo it. Again, 1 page front and back or 2 pages for the essay. All right. I'm going to erase these drawings and we can move on to the next question. So this class ends at 9 o'clock. So 40 more minutes of fun math. Yeah. All right, let's look at this next question. What is the value of the expression? Square root of 16, square root of 8, square root of 4. Now, I really like this question to show you guys because it looks scary, because I don't know how well you guys know square roots, but it definitely might appear to be more complicated than it is. And that is something that the Hunter test does really well, makes things look scary when they are not. So what we're gonna do here, a lot of you already got the answer, which is great to show, because what does that mean, right? That it's actually really quick, despite looking complicated. So this is one of those questions when we talked about like skipping around, that it might look challenging at first, but it's not worth skipping, because if you actually do it, it's only about 15-20 seconds. So let's do that really quickly. Root 16, root 8, root 4. Everyone who put an answer in the chat so far is correct. So congratulations to all of you. Yeah. Start with the innermost. The square root of 4 is 2. So I'm going to rewrite this as root 16. Let's make this really big. Root 8 times 2. And then this becomes root 16. And then root 8 times 2 is root 16, which is 4. And then root 16 times 4 is the same thing as root 64. And the square root of 64 is 8. That's it. So all of you who said 8, you guys are all right. Right? All it took was a couple of square roots, all numbers which you know. All we took the square roots of are 4, 8, and 16. And do we just multiply the number with the next one? Yes. Because once you take away like that square root of 4, it's replaced by these. There's like imaginary multiplication signs here, right? So when we replace that root 4 with a 2, you're just doing 8 times 2, which is, well, what we did here. And then there's an imaginary multiplication sign here. Okay, bunch of questions here now. So why did we multiply 16 by 4? Well, if we start at the beginning, right, why did we multiply the 8 times 2? And where did the 2 even come from? We didn't just replace a 4 with a 2, it's the square root of 4. And the square root of 4 means what number times itself multiplies to 4? That is 2. So we replace the square root of 4 with a 2, and that gets multiplied by 8 to get us 16. Then we do the square root of 16, and that gives us a 4. And lastly, we do 16 times 4, which is 64, and we take the square root of that to get 8. So we're not just replacing numbers, we're taking square roots and then multiplying it by the next thing. And yes, we're starting in the innermost part and working our way out. So this chain could be even longer, right, if it wanted to keep going. And we would keep doing the same thing. Okay, let me know if you guys have more questions about this. You guys have done a really great job so far. Especially, keeping in mind, these are not the kinds of questions that you frequently do in school. So it's awesome to hear that you guys are doing so well at this. So question, how did we get 4 in the last section? The 4 came from here. Let me annotate this. We did this, square root of 8 times 2, and that's the square root of 16, and the square root of 16 is 4. And that's where this 4 came from. Then we did 16 times 4 is 64. Then we did the square root of 64, and we got 8. So that's where these came. This is going to be the last question that we solve in this packet. So that's enough of exponents and things like that for us. We're going to do a couple of different kinds of questions in our next packet. And with that, I'm going to, any other last minute questions, or otherwise I'm going to stop sharing this packet. Awesome. The next one that I want to do is show you guys a couple of the homework questions that I thought were cool. This is the section 1, session 2.1 homework, starting with this question number 1. The value of the following expression. Now think about, you guys should all be able to solve this now because we already did a couple of sample questions. But I will say, do not let it trick you. Some people already got their answers in because you think you know how to do it, and you guys are all wrong. Let's figure out why. Think about what is different here that is unlike the other questions that we've done so far. A lot of different answers going on now. Again, if you're just starting this out, start out by figuring out what the pattern is. Maybe figure out like a couple of pairs, or think about how is it best to pair it, right? And thank you to those people that are participating and telling us your answers. I do notice it's a lot of the same people, but we are very grateful that you guys are contributing and trying this out on your own. All right, I'll get you guys started off with what the pattern is, and then hopefully you can catch where your mistakes are if you got it wrong. If you got it right, a bunch of you did, so great. I'm gonna pair them off by getting rid of these, not getting rid, but doing the subtraction and then adding all the numbers up, because I think that that's easier. This may not be the only way to do it, but I find it to be the easiest. So I see that 100 minus 98 is 2. 96 minus 94 is 2. 92 minus 90, 2. Look at that. We found our pattern. Now let's see if it ends the same way. 8 minus 6 is 2, and 4 minus 2 is 2. So we figured out our pattern. We're just adding 2 a bunch of times. Now, I think the question where many of you guys got it wrong is how many times did we add 2? How many pairs do we have? So I'll give you a minute to figure that out, and then I will tell you. All right, so I will say still a bunch of people are falling into the trap. Many of you are getting it right, so don't get me wrong, but many of you are falling into the trap, and I promise you that on a test like this, there will be an answer choice that says 100, and it will trap many, many, many people. Now, for those of you who looked past the trap and figured it out, great. Now let's explain why it's not 100. We only have even numbers. From 2 to 100. How many even numbers are there from 2 to 100? 50. How many pairs? Well, if there's only 50 numbers, there's only 25 pairs. Each pair adds to 2. So the math we should be doing is 2 times 25 is 50. For our final answer of 50. So those of you who got 50 on your first try, congratulations. For those of you who got 50 on your second or third or fourth try, still great job. As long as you are checking your work and reviewing it and not, for example, circling 100 and moving on. Now, why did people get 100? It's because they saw there are 100 numbers. So that means that there must be 50 pairs. So that means 2 times 50 is 100. But you should notice here that it's only even numbers and not all 100 numbers, unlike the very first question we did. That one got a lot of people, huh? Okay, take a minute, copy that down, and we'll look at the next one. And let me just point out that obviously I'm writing a lot to, explain the question. But if I were on the test, all right, and whether you like to show work or don't like to show work, you don't need to write a lot. If I were to do this in real time as I would on the test, I would write 2, 2, 2. Okay, figured out my pattern. 100 divided by 2, since I only have even numbers, 50. 50 pairs. So divide that by 2, 25. And I know it sounds silly that I'm remultiplying it, but if you think about like the process going on in your brain, 100 numbers divided by 2, I only have 50 even numbers. Each of those 50 numbers is paired off, so I get 25. And then each pair adds to 2, so now I'm back at 50. That's my final answer. And that's all I need to write down. I did not do any hard math, right? The biggest numbers I had to work with was doing 100 divided by 2. So this question in reality takes 30 seconds if you do it in live time. Now I know you may not be able to do it right away, but this is the skills that we build on in the Kweller classes. Okay, next one. What is the value of this product? Now again, let's talk about the fact that this is not a lot of numbers and they're not big numbers, so you can hypothetically solve them in brute force, but see if you can figure out how to do it in 30 seconds or 40 seconds. Awesome. 2 people already got it. For those of you who are still working on it and still trying to figure out, I'll give you guys a hint. Let's rewrite these as improper fractions rather than mixed numbers. So well, this one's easy because 1 plus 1 is just 2. So I can write this as 2 over 1. 1.5, I can write this as 3 over 2. This would be 4 over 3. This would be 5 over 4. This would be 6 over 5. I think now that I'm starting to write this out, many of you guys are catching what's going on. And yeah, some of you even got an explanation for it. And this is 7 over 6, and these are all multiplied. But I don't want to multiply these big numbers, right? What can I do? I can simplify them. So yeah, working through this, I think many of you already got this. I can now simplify them by cross-canceling instead of multiplying across because no one wants to multiply big numbers. That's my biggest strategy for this test. Avoid multiplying or working with really big numbers if you don't have to. Get rid of the 2s. Get rid of the 3s. Get rid of the 4s. Get rid of the 5s. And get rid of the 6s. And what are you left with? Almost everything cancels out except 1, 7. My answer is 7. So those of you who got 7, well done. Those of you who multiplied all of this, you did not have to. And again, these are pretty much what could be, oh, I'm so sorry. These are pretty much what could be real questions on the test, and they have been, and these could be in the beginning because of how quick and short they are. And the more of these kinds of strategies you know, the better. I'm going to quickly share screen to the work that we did before for this question so you can copy it down if you haven't already. So I know it closed out. Any questions? So some of you, there's a question that came up. I will be hosting this kind of class today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. We will be reviewing different topics and looking at a bunch of sample questions in the same format that we are today. We probably won't spend as much time on the intro stuff and talking about the test as much as we did today. So it'll be more math, and we're going to cover lots of different topics. It won't all be the same. This is just the first topic that we're doing. Okay. Is this the next one? Very similar, but also not. So take a stab at this. Right, this one really follows suit with the previous one in terms of we're not going to be multiplying big numbers, right? You already know that. So figure out how and what can we cancel out to get this to simplify. And one strategy that I would recommend is to rewrite what all of this would look like without the parentheses, but in order. So in the beginning, right, in the numerator, for example, you have 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 5, right? I'm going to rewrite that as 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, and so on. Because it's multiplication, it's commutative. Rewrite that out. So when you start crossing stuff out, you can see what's going to be left in the beginning, right? I'm not going to say it yet. But then, what about what's going to happen at the end? This part I didn't write out yet. So I hope this helps. Think about what cancels, what's left. Okay, sorry about that. There's a 1 on top. There is 100 at the end that's not in the denominator. There is an extra 99 in the denominator, and there is an extra 2 in the denominator. Right? We know not to look for any of these middle numbers because they're not going to matter. They're always going to be paired. So the only thing that matters is what's on these corners here. So what are we left with? 1 times 100 over 2 times 99. And even then, I don't need to waste a bunch of time multiplying these numbers. I can simply cross simplify this to be 50. So 1 times 50 gives me 50 over 99. So anyone who got 50 over 99, well done. Okay, a lot of questions here as to how we got this. How did we simplify this? So let's talk this through from the beginning. The first thing that I did was I took out the parentheses because it's all multiplication, so it's all commutative. We have to understand that from the get-go. Second of all, we have a lot of numbers, 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 5, right? If we just read off the numerator, that I can reorder to be in chronological order. There's a 1, there's a 2, there's 2 3s, right? There's going to be 2 4s. How do I know that? Because what's the pattern? 1, 3, 2, 4, 3, 5, right? We can figure out what the next number is going to be. It's going to be, what is that? 4, 6, right? So each in the numerator, each number is going to appear twice, aside from the 1 and 2. And then at the end, we see 98, 99 are going to appear twice, but 100, or 99 is going to appear once, and 100 is going to appear once, just like the 1 and 2. In the denominator, this one's easier because each number appears twice from 2 to 99. And so when I wrote them out this way, here, I can just simplify or look at and circle the numbers that are on one side, but not the other. So I have 100 in the numerator that I don't have in the denominator. I have a 1 in the numerator that I don't have in the denominator. And in the denominator, I have 2 99s, even though there's only 1 in the numerator, and 2 2s, even though there's only 1 in the numerator. So if I cross out everything else, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, everything else up to 99, what am I left with? Only the numbers that I've circled, 1, 100, 2, and 99. So it's 1 times 100 over 2 times 99, and which we can simplify to 1 times 50 over 99, which in other words is just 50 times 99. So if you haven't figured this out, copy it down. Ask any other questions that you might have. And if you have questions, we have about 10 minutes left. So if you have any questions that is not about this, but it's about the Hunter test or Hunter as a school, I will remind you, I did go to Hunter. I did take the test. I know exactly how you guys feel. So, and I'm not that old. So it's not, I'm not just telling, I can tell you things from my own experience, not just as a teacher, but as someone who was in your shoes once, who took this test, who did everything that you're doing now. And if there aren't any questions, we will do one last question together. Is the test harder than the practice ones? No. In fact, by the time people take the test, they often say that the real test was easier than our practice test. Does Hunter have a chess team? Yes, it does. I think it was quite popular when I went. I'm pretty sure it still is. I think it still exists. I doubt that it got any less popular. What should you be scoring as a minimum for the essay? So the essay, it's really, they're not scored numerically to the same extent that they are, for example, in our Kweller classes. We use that as like a benchmark for you to improve, but on the real test, it's more so that they're compared to others. And so it's kind of like who wrote the best essay. But in class, in the beginning, you will get very, 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 very poor essay grades, right? Francis said in the beginning, I have given out lots and lots and lots of 0s and 1s and 2s. But by the end, you should be hopefully in the 7s, 8s, and maybe a 9, right? That would be incredible. But that's all the way at the end. So by no means should you be expecting scores like that now. How to relieve stress on the test day? Well, funny enough, the test is right in the morning. So hopefully you don't have a lot of time to stress out. So wake up, have a good breakfast, know that you know everything that you can know. There's no such thing as last minute studying for this. And Just go in, have a good time, and it'll be over, right? There's really nothing more to do. If you missed the first section of our class, we reviewed from the Belmont links, we reviewed section 1, Arithmetic Beyond the Basics. And we did all of the sample problems there. So you can review that at home, and they have really great explanations on the website as well. Does Hunter have a music program? Yes, it does. We all had to take music classes, and there are also bands and optional classes as well. And I think people really like that. The teachers were really cool. Did I have good teachers in school? Yes, and I'm actually still in touch with some of them, and that I think speaks to the environment that Hunter is like. You get very close with your teachers, you stay in touch with them after you graduate. They're very, very helpful. Getting back your test results. So if you get into Hunter, they will not tell you what your score was. They will only tell you that you got in. If you don't get in, I believe they do tell you your score if you didn't make it, but you didn't make it. So I think they do that so that no one really starts to compare themselves in terms of who got a better or worse score. It's more about getting in or not getting in. There is no requirement for correct answers in ELA and math specifically. It's about your total score. And like I said before, even your total score, there's no like hard passing. I got like a 65, I passed. It's based on the top 500 scores, which is dependent on how hard or easy a test is that year, or how well the students are scoring. Someone said they met the chess team at the National Chess Championship. They do have a great chess team, so I hope that the people there were nice. Are there honors classes? Yes, actually all of the classes are technically honors, so something that's really cool. You don't need to think about this now, but something I thought was really cool when I was applying to college is that on my transcript it said that all of my classes were honors, even gym, right? That sounds kind of funny saying I was in honors gym, which doesn't really mean anything. But yes, all your classes are honors, and there are a couple of classes that you can be extended honors. Does it have a math team? Yes, it does. And you can take a test and join it, and your teachers will be super, super excited to have you join if you want to. So they will show you everything you need to join the math team. Is a test on a school day? I don't know the exact day that it's on, but historically it was.
April 5 this year.
It's what?
It's on April 5th this year. They decided to surprise everyone.
Does that mean is that a weekday or a weekend?
It's on a weekday. It's right before spring break.
Okay. They've historically usually done it on school days. So something that's fun is that you get an excused absence from school if you find that fun. But it is excused, and it is during the school day. The test takes place at either the Hunter High School, where the actual high school is, or at Hunter College, which is not that far away. It doesn't matter where your test is. It's just they're just splitting up all the students. You will know when you get your ticket, so just make sure you check for the location. Is there a clock on the wall? Yes, every room should have a clock. It's still just best practice to bring a watch just in case, but there should be a clock.
Definitely bring a watch.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Go to like Walgreens and get a $15 watch. I was going to say 10, but inflation. Just make sure you get a watch, or go online and just order like a Casio. Definitely order a watch.
Yeah. What time will the test be? It's in the morning. It will not start at an exact time. They have to get every student into a room and get you all situated, and you'll have time to go to the bathroom, get water, blah, blah, blah. But it will generally just be in the morning. You will have a time that you have to arrive at the high school or college to take your test. So definitely be on time in that sense. But your test could start at 8:30, it could start at 8:45, right? That's a little bit flexible and depends just on each class. Is Hunter hard? Like, yes, it is an academically challenging school. We did have a lot of homework, probably compared to some of my friends in other schools, but it's a lot of fun, and the students that are around you are incredibly smart, just like you are, and you motivate each other to do better.
Okay.
Considering they're only 2 weeks before, what is the best way to practice essay writing? Write as much as you can. Find as many prompts as you can, write as many essays as you can, and get people to read them and give you comments. You have to just start being prepared to just write that much. You may not often write such long essays in school, so just be prepared that it's going to be an essay like that and write as much as possible. Learn your transition words, your vocabulary words, create a bank of them. Any of the Kweller classes will give you all the tools you need to write a good essay. Is there a
Oh my
debate
God, can we
program?
Guys, it's 8:56. Can everyone give Dasha a huge thank you? Type it in the chat. Give her a ginormous thank you for all of this time and effort and energy. Everyone, can you please type thank you in the chat? Dasha, do you miss these cute little 6th graders?
I do, and I'm so excited for you guys to take this test. I really do miss teaching, and I
Yes.
wish you all the best of luck.
All right, everyone, say thank you. Thank you. Oh my God, they still have more questions. We're just gonna save the questions for next time because you'll see Dasha again tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
be here tomorrow if I didn't answer your questions. I can stay an extra minute. I can answer a couple more.
We're gonna keep you here till midnight. Warning. Okay.
I won't be here till midnight, but I can definitely answer a couple more questions. And if you have to go, you can absolutely go. I hope to see you all tomorrow. If this felt slow and easy for you, we will be picking up the pace. If you felt like this was challenging for you, review the questions that we did there. All of these packets are in the emails.
Everyone, let's say thank you to Dasha. Can I take them off mute? I'm gonna take you guys off mute. Okay, everyone say thank you. We're gonna count to 3 and you're gonna say thank you. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you for being
Thank
a
you.
real adult and in the working world and still making
Thank
time
you
for
very
the
much.
home. Thank
You
you
guys are
Dasha.
so welcome. Feel free to ask me any questions, and if you have questions that you don't want like addressed with the whole class or have any personal questions, you can definitely ask them and we can chat about it at another time. So I am here for you guys and wish you all the best of luck. And
Good luck,
with that,
everyone.
what was that?
Good luck, everybody. All right. And we
Thank you.
will continue tomorrow. Okay. Good luck, everyone. Thank you,
Good luck.
Dasha.
See you guys tomorrow.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Bye, everybody. Bye. Bye-bye. Remember Goldie? She's sort of in here.
Oh, hi, Goldie.
Goldie. I'm gonna put her in spotlight. Goldie. Oh my God, you did great, Dasha. Thank you so much. Thank you for doing this. Thank
No
you,
problem.
everybody.
I'll be back tomorrow.
All right, everyone. Goldie, say bye to Dasha. Bye. Kind of in there. Okay. Thanks. All right. Good to reconnect via Zoom. All right. Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
I don't know if they're still logged on.
End the
Oh.
meeting. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, I'm logging off. Bye.